In 1971, I was the captain of that track team, and we went to Lawrence, Kansas to run the sprint medley relay. That's two 220s, a 440, and an 880. Carl ran the leadoff 220, I ran the second one. Ed ran the quarter, and Dave anchored it with the half mile. Look at that photograph. You notice something interesting, Julie? There's only one African-American athlete. Art was our trainer, manager. Did I know how Carl felt? Carl lived by himself in the athletic dorm. This was in the late 60s, early 70s. You know what he had to deal with. But Carl's my teammate. And the worst disease a person can have is loneliness, right? We're getting ready to leave to go to the track to run the prelims, and Ed and Dave were already in the van getting ready to go to the track, and Carl and I were the last out of the restaurant. And I'll tell you, I'm honest, I didn't get it back then, Tommy. If I won a race, I felt good. If I lost a race, I felt bad. That's pretty precarious, isn't it? If I don't get that promotion or I don't get this, fill in the blank. And as we were leaving the restaurant, I noticed Carl hadn't eaten. And I thought this, if Carl doesn't eat and we keep progressing, he's going to not have the energy to let the team down, right, Tanya? And I went over to Carl, and I'll never forget this, 1971. And I asked Carl, I said, Carl, why didn't you eat? And he said, and he had a very meek voice, he said, oh, Bert, I don't eat when we travel. Only time I eat's when we're back in Austin, Texas, at the athletic dining hall, because the food's free. And I still didn't get it because the university always gave us traveling money. I didn't have a lot of extra money. And I asked him this next question. I said, well, Carl, what do you do with the money the university gives you? He said, oh, Bert, I send that home to my mom and my dad so my brothers and sisters can eat. Now, let me ask you what Carl's purpose was. It's to get an education, a degree, against all odds, right? To help his family get out of abject poverty. You see what pulled him through the crucibles he had to face? He wanted to help keep hope alive for his family, didn't he? And by the way, he was a phenomenal sprinter, 9,300. That's fast. And I look back now how well he could have done if he had more hope, but still was fast. So we get in the van and we go to the track, and we made the finals that night in Lawrence, Kansas, under the lights. We were in lane 6, one of the slowest qualifying times, but we made the finals. By the way, Carl and I often talked about the pain of discipline and the pain of regret, the choices. Carl and I never left a practice without having 10 perfect blind baton exchanges. We were juniors. Think of the hundreds of baton exchanges. By the way, unlike our Olympians, we never dropped a baton in competition. That's unacceptable. Talent doesn't always win, right? That night in Lawrence, Kansas, in lane 6 under the lights, we made the finals. That gun went off. Carl exploded out of the blocks, came around that corner, fastest opening 220 of his career, hit that piece of tape that was my go mark, my trust mark. I took off, perfect blind baton exchange, ran a 20.6 split, that's fast. Handed the baton off to Ed Wright. Ed ran the fastest quarter mile of his career. Handed the baton off to Dave Morton. Dave ran a 1:46.2 half mile. And we didn't just make the finals that night in Lawrence, Kansas, under the lights. We won the race and had the fastest time in the world. We were all Americans. We will always beat me, won't it? Here's the lesson from that victory. When you trust more, and listen to the sequence, when you trust more, when you believe more, when you care more, and when you expect more, greatness occurs, right? You notice the sequence? Trust more, believe more, care more, and expect more. Have that hanging in my office proudly, of just in honor of my teammates. Life's not always fair, is it? Crucibles? Is it? It's not, is it, right? It's where you learn from. 1973, I'd graduated in 72. Carl was scheduled to graduate in 1973, which he did. You met my daddy yesterday, right? My daddy called me up. I was working in Columbia, South Carolina, Frank, and my dad called me one day, says, Bubba, I got some bad news for you. You know, in my life, when you're 23 years old, bad news is your dog died. And I asked him, I said, well, Daddy, what happened? He said, Carl got killed. Still hurts. I said, what happened, Daddy? He said he was heading down Interstate 35. A car went out of its lane, hit him head on, and killed him instantly. But friends, I'm as sure as I'm standing here, Carl's spirit is in this room, spiritual energy. And he would want me to share with you these words. All of life is like a race with ups and downs and all. And all you have to do to win the race is rise each time you fall. Quit, give up your beating, they still shout in your face. But a stronger voice inside you says, get up and win the race. What lost